Now, last week we brought you a story about an online petition to introduce a right to ask scheme. That's what it's called. Now, it's part of efforts to crack down on domestic violence in New South Wales. Well, that petition to implement what's known as Clare's Law has now successfully attracted more than 20,000 signatures.
And that's significant. It means under the rules of New South Wales Parliament, the issue of whether to introduce the scheme will now be scheduled for debate in the lower house. So to discuss the road ahead, we're joined now by musician and domestic violence advocate and founder of the Good Warrior, Joe Cooper, who's been campaigning for the law and created this petition. Joe, good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
For those who don't know, can we just start? Clare's Law, as it's widely known, what is it and how does it work? It was modelled on the UK, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah. It gives people the right to know if their partner or potential partner has a history of violence. So it's a preventative tool.
It's reached 20,000 signatures.
And plus.
Right,
and
plus
more.
20,000 plus.
Yep.
An e-petition done through the New South Wales Parliament.
Yes.
And as I said, there's clearly people who are passionate about this. Under the rules, this now does have to be scheduled for debate. What happens now? Has someone been in touch about when this might happen?
I don't know when it will happen, but Felicity Wilson is the MP who's backed the petition. So she will now formally present that to Parliament. There's a period that we have to wait for a response, and if it's prioritised, we then go into a consultation period. And that's the period where everybody, whoever's interested, gets a right to speak on it, to put their thoughts forward. And I truly hope that lived experience is really at the forefront of that consultation.
And indeed, as it should be. And you know, there's parliamentary support obviously already with Felicity Wilson.
Yes.
Tens of thousands of people have signed this. Now you've hit that threshold, I guess, are you optimistic that this will be implemented?
I'm optimistic as far as my efforts are concerned. There is never a guarantee with Parliament. Unfortunately, Jodie Harrison, who's the current Minister for Women and Prevention of Domestic Violence, has not been very supportive, so that is a concern of mine. The opposition seem to be a lot more supportive of it. I do hope that they do some research, because we have an opportunity here to really, change the tide on this crisis.
It was first introduced in the UK.
Yes.
Right. We haven't seen the same momentum here, just off the back of what you were saying. It is in use in South Australia, in no other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Domestic violence rates are at crisis level. We keep hearing from leaders that things need to change. Why has there been a reluctance to introduce it, which you yourself have said you haven't seen that support from the government itself?
No, and I'm just going to put it this way. We have the federal government have declared a national crisis. We are so lucky that South Australia has actually been declared a global best in regards to systems around domestic violence. Why we haven't rolled that out nationally, quite frankly, we have failed. It's embarrassing. The only reason I can think of is the constant flaws they keep finding in Clare's Law, privacy, false sense of security. I believe that's done by Monash University and parroted by a few politicians and stakeholders. If we are going to adopt that mindset, we might as well do away with police checks, criminal history records, and, we might as well throw in seatbelts and fire alarms, because nothing is foolproof. It's a ludicrous argument, and it makes me worried where our funding is actually being distributed to.
Yeah, I did want to ask you, because as you said, this Monash study is one of them, right? And they made the point that most of the applicants that they interviewed, right, who had used this, they used the scheme when they'd already left the relationship and had already experienced the abuse. So there was this idea that, hang on, it's not preventative. They'd already experienced the abuse. They found out after the fact. Is that a valid point?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you look at South Australia, they have such a good system. Like I said, it's not being declared the global best for no reason. It's a system that, like I said, there are no guarantees with all these issues. There are no guarantees in most crises. But to say that it's not going to work based on, I don't know how many people that they interviewed, not sure, but I know that in South Australia, there is an increase in take-up of Clare's Law, which they call the Domestic Violence Disclosure Scheme. And there is an uptake on that. Victim survivors want agency. We want the power to go and seek what we want when we want to, and this is a preventative. I think it's about 70% of people experiencing violence do not actually go to a specialised service. So we have to find other ways where people feel safe in going and seeking the information they need, because you can't tell somebody what they need, if you know what I mean. And giving somebody the right to know and ask when they're ready is just one step in a toolbox that I hope we can create more.
We've obviously we've spoken about Monash in South Australia, but this started in the UK. Has there been evidence in the United Kingdom that it has worked? People are using the resource and it has made a difference?
I believe there is more criticism in the UK around the time it takes
That's a bureaucratic thing, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, I want to focus on South Australia because, you know, we can pick the holes, but how lucky are we to have a system that is actually working? And even if it's not working, isn't it a good opportunity to build on it? Isn't it time to address things that are falling through the cracks? You know, we need police to have a lot more education in response. In South Australia, when you do go and apply, there is a risk assessment that takes place. If it is then approved, a trained officer with special workers, I think there's a disclosure meeting that's organised. So it's done in a controlled fashion. Those are the things we need to focus on. And as I said, we can always improve. And I think, given that we are in a national crisis, I think it's well beyond time we have this conversation.
We're following it closely, as you said, now scheduled for debate. It's great to have you with us, Jo. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Jo Keeper with us there, a domestic violence advocate, musician and founder of The Good Warrior as well. Just before we move on, if this story's raised any issues for you, I just want to give you that number for the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Helpline. The number's on your screen, 1800-RESPECT, 1800